It's one small step for man.
Welcome to Earth.
One giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's Rick.
UFOs are
What's
real.
up, everybody? Welcome back to the I Believe in Humans podcast. I'm your host, Justin, co-host Dustin, man on the ones and twos, Tomas representing. And we've got a special guest from overseas, Mr. Fred Andersson, representing. Did I butcher it already?
Yeah, you did.
And Fred, that being said, Fred is now signed off, and it's been a good episode. No, I'm just kidding. Fred, sorry, thank you for having. I didn't want to go Fred Anderson is how we would pronounce it, but Andersson is what I was going for. Yeah. And hopefully I didn't just alienate an entire population of people over in Sweden. But thank you for tuning in, guys. Good to see everybody here. And Fred, thank you for staying up. I know it's like what you said, like 11 o'clock your time right now. So really appreciate you staying up and making time for us, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I took a nap here before this started, so hopefully I will stay awake.
Took a nice cat nap. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you.
Yep.
I hit Dunkin' for like my third iced coffee of the day, just so I could be ready for you and resonating. Dustin, Tomas, did you guys run around the block? Do you do push-ups? Are you guys fired up, ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Got my push-ups in.
It's only 4 p.m.
Good.
It's only 4 p.m. over here. So
this is our first international guest. So not only is Fred an amazing person, I've been following you on Instagram for quite some time, and I've seen you on a few podcasts recently. I think most recently I saw you on friend of the show, Ryan Sprague's Somewhere in the Skies, and I was super jealous that Ryan kind of got to you first. I was like, now it looks like we're copycats. But I've actually been watching you posting about your book collection, and you're into kind of all things high strange, and it really seems that you have a very diverse background and education in this stuff. Am I correct?
Yeah, education. I don't know. I mean, I'm self-taught, but yeah, absolutely. I've been interested in the subject since I was a kid, basically, as many of us, reading books there during the middle of the 80s and watching documentaries. And we have an organization called UFO Sverige, which is the only organization dealing with UFOs and the unexplained here in Sweden. And there you have a couple of personalities. Claes Svan, for example, who's still active. He had his 65th birthday the other day. So UFO Sverige have really shaped my interest in the phenomenon over the years. And now I'm also active in the organization, finally, after many years, just reading their magazines and using their archive and such. But I work with the paranormal. My main work for the last 4 years has been as a story producer, researcher for a big paranormal show that's on Discovery Plus here in Scandinavia, where it's a quite typical, some investigators go to a famous haunted place and they do an investigation. Feels a lot like the American counterparts, but a lot better, I would say. Sorry.
Ours is all fluff, so I get it.
We get it.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of angry Vikings. By the way, I'm wearing my shirt for you. This is my fantasy baseball team is named the Angry Vikings, and I thought we're having a Swedish guest on. I'm going Angry Viking, and I've got my Valiant Thor representing for Norse and Scandinavian mythos. In what respect are you saying it's a little bit better in terms of like your ghosts are scarier or your investigators are tall, dark, and handsome? Like, what are we talking about here? How is this better?
No, I didn't mean to offend anyone in the United States. What I say, each episode is between 80 to 100 minutes long, first of all. So it's all of them are like a feature-length movie. And they also look like a feature-length.
Oh.
The episodes look gorgeous, if I have to say.
They're cinematic.
Myself.
You're not doing shaky
very,
handheld infrared, everybody's green kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have that also, but I mean, it's kind of the framing of the show is very much like a gorgeous horror movie. You know, lots. You know, it's drone porn basically at the start, and a lot of gorgeous stock shots from the locations. I mean, it looks great. I mean, we won the audience award at Kristallen. Kristallen is like the Emmys in Sweden for 3 years in a row.
Congratulations.
So
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
that's awesome.
Uh,
Do you,
so yeah, I can't really hide my pride when it comes to this show.
you shouldn't.
So I'm
Absolutely not. So do you just story produce for this production, or do you actually get to be a part of the investigations? What's your full involvement there?
I'm we we're quite small team behind the camera. So when we do the pre-production for each episode, is basically just me.
Okay.
Then we have a project manager and coordinator and stuff, and the producer. So I find all the places. I find the witnesses. I do research. I write the scripts. It might sound weird to write scripts for a reality-based show, but you need some structure at least, to how you're going to build each episode. Actually, it's now we just recently finished shooting the sixth season.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
And this is the first season I've actually been on location.
Okay.
Because they asked me, Fred, you want to join? So I've been out, kind of partly been a hang around, actually, to be honest. But I've been there during the investigations, and there's been some really interesting phenomena going on. Mostly loud bangs and stuff moving, but we caught a couple of interesting things on camera. So that was so much fun. But then again, these are investigations that go on to 5 a.m. And as we talked earlier, I go to bed at like 9:30.
How are you?
So
how are you still
like,
awake? How are you still awake for these ghosts?
I don't know. I mean, there was one 24. I slept 1 hour during 24 hours once, which for me is, I mean, when I was 20, of course, I could do this, but now I'm 46, and it's like it took me like a week to get over it, to get back in business again. But it's fun. It's super fun. We have a great paranormal team called LaxTon, Tony and Niklas. They're, I guess, Sweden or Scandinavia's only professional ghost hunters. So they have an amazing knowledge and lots of interesting equipment to work with, and they also have a fantastic museum in their hometown, which is lovely. The outside look like shit, but the inside looks gorgeous. I'm sure they're aware of that.
Yeah.
I hope so. Anyway.
When it comes to investigating, this has been something that's an interest Justin for a long time, and I would rather story produce. I'd rather be in your chair and sit back and kind of direct everyone where to go, because I'm afraid of coming into contact with something demonic. Has your crew ever come across anything or brought anything home with them that attach themselves?
Attachment, the hitchhiker phenomenon is what really interests me.
Yeah, absolutely. They have. Now, I mean, to be fair, I haven't been home at their places, experienced stuff. But what I've heard from them, they had for the last couple of years had something following them. They think it's the same entity. No matter what that is. To be honest, I'm a bit skeptical about the demonic part, but they claim it's a demon. They feel it's a demon or that kind of being that's been especially terrorizing two of them, which kind of have sucked the energy from both of them. And that's very, very visible, especially now in the last season where, I mean, there's not, poor people, there's not much power left in them after this. But there's been activity in all their homes, and they've also, I mean, I guess you can say what you want about Spirit Box, etc., all this kind of equipment, but you've had the same names show up. You have the same references shows up after, during a couple of years, which is, I would say, I mean, considering we're making television, it's very good timing for
Yeah,
these
for real.
these things, to show up. You can be a skeptic about it, but even I I'm surprised
Right.
with what I see. They've also done. I told them to do the Estes method a couple of times, which have, I mean, really amazing stuff. That's, I can analyze other equipment. I can analyze other methods and feel that, oh yeah, you can read in whatever you want. But the Estes method is, to me, absolutely amazing. And scary as fuck.
It is. I've seen a lot of these. Are you familiar? So have you watched Ghost Adventures and Zach Baggins, who's obviously pretty popular over here in America? Are you familiar with their show? Is it popular over there?
When preparing the second season, which were supposed to be in the United States, and then the pandemic came, so we never went to the pandemic. I watched hours and hours of Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventure just to get some inspiration for places.
30 seasons, yeah. But that guy is like,
it's so much.
That guy's Mr. Like, he goes in and gets himself possessed and all kinds of crazy stuff, and actually that's why he wears the glasses now, because of his documentary in Demon House. He claims it is after this encounter with this entity, he got like double vision or something. And you guys both wearing glasses, by the way. I'm looking at you guys split screen. You and Dustin are like doppelgangers. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I was like, I'm looking at the two of you right now, and we have a battle of best mustaches here, real quick, which is Tomas.
I just shaved recently.
Tomas, Tomas is going to bring up an old twirly mustache, and I want to see Fred. I want to put you side by side with old twirly mustache Dustin, and let's do. We'll go to social media and we'll take a quick poll. Who has the best twirly mustache?
Oh,
there's
that's a nice
one.
Can you zoom in a little
one.
bit? All right, there we go. What's
my
the next
buddy? It's my buddy Mike's wedding reception.
There we go. You got to get the zoom. All right. So he doesn't have it as twirled, but you can see that he didn't have his wax in, but it's kind of going out to the side there.
It's a good one. I say,
Fred, have you always had the twirly mustache? Because as far as every photo I've seen of you, you've got a great facial hair. You're like me. You're the bearded brotherhood over here, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, now I'm getting too honest, but I think I started to get beard when I was 30. So
you were a late bloomer.
Yeah, exactly. So when that hit, I always wanted beard. I always wanted mustache, and this mustache I had at least double the length before, but for years. But it was so tricky to always keep it, keep it in shape.
I feel like when you get into the paranormal and this type of stuff, it's really important to have some sort of physical brand. Like, you kind of have this caricature that we all kind of move towards, and it's just funny. Everybody's kind of got their thing. And so I'm gonna reel us back in real quick. I didn't mean to take us off on a mustache tangent.
Mustache ride, yeah.
But so obviously you're working in film and stuff, and something I want to jump into here is that you're also a fantastic author. I was reading some of your Medium articles. I know that you've got a couple books out, and at the end we'll talk about your latest book is due out soon. But your latest article that I came across, and I would love to jump in and ask you about, is this sleep regression episode that you had. And my God, you recalled some pretty fantastic detail of being a small boy in Thailand. So I want you to tell the story, but I was reading this article, what is happening right now? I thought you were going to get bits and pieces, fragments, but you got this epic, Zelda type of story going on here. And so please share with the people just kind of your writing background. And then if you could just kind of segue into your latest article, and people definitely should go and read this for some just fantastic memory, recollection after this hypnosis episode.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I love writing. I mean, I still have boxes full from when I was a kid trying to write detective stories and the horror stories. Quite embarrassing to read now, but I still save them because I love to explore the language and what feelings you can create by putting letters in a specific order and create words. I mean, for me that is magic. I mean, language and words are magic, very much so. So a couple of years back, I decided to start, writing about subjects I truly like. I mean, I had, I think this was in 2016, and I've been working a lot. And I had, I don't know what you call it in English in your language. In Sweden we say that we walked into a wall.
Like
We
writer's
we
block? Are you talking about writer?
No, no, no. It's like when you work too much, you get burned
Oh,
out,
yes.
basically. Yeah. So I spent like 2 months just walking in the forest. I ate a lot of mushrooms.
Attaboy. Now we're
Uh,
talking.
yeah. Yeah. And because of that, I started to take my writing seriously. I just felt, okay, I need to start writing. I've been writing all my life, but in 2016, I started to write down all the ideas and thoughts I had, and I published 2 books with it's like kind of collection of essays. They're not, to be honest, that good, but I got them out at least. There's some good stuff in them. There's
They're on
some very cringe stuff
they're on
also.
Amazon right now, right? Are those the ones I saw on Amazon? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Homo Satanis 1 and 2.
Cool.
Yeah. So I can't say you should buy them. To be honest, I mean,
Go and buy
there's some
them.
stuff I
Support
feel
Fred. Support Sweden. Support all the weird stuff going on in Sweden. Here, we're going to throw them up on the screen. So if you're watching on YouTube,
oh, no.
here, look for these covers. Go support our boy Fred. I'm not gonna.
Oh, I'm so.
I love your
sorry,
humility and humbleness, but I'm not going to let you. I'm going to tell our people to go support you, bro. We got you.
Okay.
We're band of brothers out here, man.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I love UFOs. I absolutely love UFOs and aliens and humanoids and gnomes and all those things, and especially in Sweden, because Sweden has such a rich history of these, and it's not so well known outside of our borders. So if I remember it correctly, the first article I wrote was about a big UFO flap in 1974 in Vallentuna, which still surprises me. It's still unsolved. It's an amazing story by itself. And after that, it's kind of, I mean, I try to write at least, I have a new text out maybe every second week. Sometimes it's a bit longer between them. And the last one, I dived into my archive of already written stuff and found a past life regression I did in 2014. And I did that as a research for a television project that never happened. But I had the pleasure of going to Jörgen Sundvall, and Jörgen is probably the best hypnotherapist in the world. And what I dig about him is that he don't know what this is about.
Yeah.
We talked about it afterwards, and he said, I asked him, is this my imagination? Is it is it past life? And he said, I don't know.
He didn't claim to have the answers. Yeah, it makes it almost.
Yeah,
it makes it more mysterious and kind of reels you in when people aren't trying to like sell you.
Oh yeah,
that's amazing.
And yeah, and I like that, and I got a lot of respect for him because of that. Because I honestly, I think it's difficult when people know the truth, or they claim to know the truth at least. So he hypnotized me. I went under, and I had this, I would say, life-changing experience where I found myself as a little boy in the medieval times in Thailand. I think it's called Siam at the time. And I lost my parents. There was some city burning down, and I was growing up, and I died basically. It was so detailed, and I still today I'm not entirely sure if I made it up there, if it was just my mind creating it or if it was something else.
I read
But
it,
I'm
and it
so
plays in my mind. If anybody's ever seen the movie Apocalypto, I think was directed
Yeah.
by Mel Gibson. Like, your writing made me think of that movie, and that's like the visual image that was coming to me. I was like, my God, if this is what this guy saw in his brain, whether it's your imagination or it was real, either way is amazing. It's just fantastic, like, recollection, and then to be able to recall that and jot it down later was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And when rediscovering this text and reading it again, it touched me to read it, because there was so many things I had forgotten. Among one of those things was a very, very deep insight that I shouldn't let anyone control me. I should go my own way and do my own stuff, which I've done since then, I would say, basically, most of the time at least. And reading that again, kind of made me feel, what's the word? Empowered. I felt strong
Hell
by
yeah.
it. It helped me a lot.
I feel like I want to fly to Sweden and give you a hug right now.
I
love it. No, but because it comes, you can feel that in your writing, and you're talking to three guys. I mean, we talked about consciousness. We played clips from Jim Carrey. Tomas was educating me on Eckhart Tolle. I'm butchering other people's names now. And so a lot of fantastic readings, and I love hearing people's sort of personal journeys with that type of self-discovery. You know what I mean? It's such a beautiful thing to witness, because what the hell else is the point of all of this?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. That's basically what I've done since I was 30.
Yeah.
Trying to go back into myself, work with myself. Before that, I was a total fucking asshat. I mean, I wasn't rude or mean, yeah, kinda, but I was a totally different person, 16 years ago.
I can't imagine.
Absolutely.
Are people mean in Sweden? I've only ever heard like nice things about like Scandinavian countries.
It's difficult for me to say because I'm Swedish, but what I understand is people can seem to be a bit cold, a bit distant from other people. Personally, I like that. I mean, you have this reoccurring joke here in Sweden that if you look at the bus station, you see people standing, with 2 meters in between each other. And I like that part. I like a lot about Sweden. We don't want to get too crowded. We kind of want to keep to ourselves. But yeah, we're nice. I mean, in general, I would say Swedish people are nice. I hope so.
Well, speaking of Sweden, I kind of wanted to, and this is a UFO podcast, so we are really big on UFOs, and I am not as educated on the events that have happened in Sweden. I'm reading through some of your articles. There's some really cool stuff that have happened that I think a lot of our listeners do not know. And one that stuck out to me was more of a modern UFO witnessed event, and it happened in 1996. Do you mind kind of giving us that story? It happened in Falkland Hill. In 1996, it was in your Beyond the Bubble article.
Yeah, absolutely. That one is not Swedish. That is.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
But in the same article, I'm going from that case to a Swedish case that happened.
Okay, I got you.
But that's a bit longer ago. It's like in 1947. But they're very, very similar. The one in Falkland, where the witnesses saw bubbles floating towards them. They first saw a big UFO and lots of beings around it. And when they got closer, these bubbles came to them with faces inside. And when I was reading that, I remember the case from 1947. An old man, I don't remember his name now. He talked about it many, many years later, and he had come home. He was on his way home one evening, and he saw these big circles in the sky, 3 big circles like rings flying after each other, and they seemed to land behind the outhouse at his family's home. And so of course he got curious. He was like 11, 12 years old at the time. So he walked over and encountered, I think it was 3 or 4 tiny humanoids inside bubbles. It's like they were, yeah, it was like they were steering the bubbles, like it was vehicles, and they had this weird long faces. They looked crazy. They looked like that, kind of very bizarre. And they were like, they stopped the bubbles and they kind of looked at him, and he had a sense that they were talking about him, maybe even laughing at him. And then they they continued to fly and disappeared. And that's it's such a weird thing. I love when it goes extra weird with these tiny humanoids in bubbles. It's not the.
That's not your typical
so
gray alien. Or for you, I would think, out here people typically talk about the grays, the little grays, and the tall Nords, right? The tall whites, and then they say they look like Nordic, like Viking, tall, blonde hair, fair skin. So bubbles and long eyes wide shut, Salvador Dali type faces is not what we typically hear in eyewitness encounters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, in my research, I haven't encountered so many gray stories in Sweden. There's mostly been other kinds of beings. And one of my favorites, and this is a story I've told on several podcasts, I won't go into it so much in detail, was in 1969, and there was a transmitter station manager called Kjell Näslund, who came to work at 6 p.m. And a little while later, he get this urge to go and look outside the station. This is in the middle of a forest, it's wilderness around. And he looks out and he sees this huge flying saucer or spacecraft or whatever hovering outside. It's 150 meters in diameter. So it's gigantic. And it's like 15 meters from the door. So it's very, very close. And he sees this tunnel going into the craft. And from this tunnel comes these box-shaped beings. They kind of flow. It's like, imagine box-shaped clouds, with fuzzy edges, and they tell him they want to come inside through some kind of telepathic messages. So he let them inside, and these beings, he's like 10-15 centimeters from the beings, and so you can look at them really close.
Yeah, that's really close.
Yeah, and that case is absolutely, I mean, it's way more complex than that. It's quite straightforward, but it's so many more details. But it's one of those cases that there's no known explanation to it. I mean, yeah, he could have fallen asleep, but the thing is, he was calling people in between these events, so he wasn't, in that case, he wasn't sleeping all the time because he woke up and called people.
He wasn't doing a podcast episode at 11 o'clock at night. With a bunch of American guys.
Yeah. So what I appreciate in Swedish ufology and the Swedish UFO history is the variety of creatures, of humanoids, of beings. I remember, I think I mentioned it in one of my articles about at least 2 owl beings. One owl that was flying some kind of UFO, and another owl with 3 arms. That a woman met once.
Arms or wings?
No, arms. It had arms, kind of furry, featherish arms. In her case, I don't have I never talked to her, so I haven't been able to look deeper into it. But it's such a bizarre story, I have to mention it. But I like the owl flying a UFO. That was also in the 40s. So
that would make a cool T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's a bunch of flying creatures in Swedish folklore, isn't there? You had an article on the Helen vulture.
Yes.
What all kinds of different types of flying creatures are there out in Sweden that you
there?
talk about?
I mean, it's not that many, but we have. I mean, the Helen vulture, I guess, is one of the more famous. It's like a big pterodactyl that lives on an island in the south of Sweden. I haven't, to be honest, found any modern witnesses to it, but the stories has been there for a couple of 100 years.
Oh wow.
We also have a couple of birds, more traditional birds, which are often connected to death and the afterlife, for example. I also know that there is a couple of observation of flying stingray-like beings.
Interesting.
I've
yeah.
heard the sting. I've heard the stingray. People have seen that type of either a craft or creature. You know, because we have Native American folklore out here in the Americas, is full of flying like the Thunderbird in the American Southwest. You know, when cowboys and wagoneers and stuff were moving west, they talked about seeing these big, almost like phoenix type of birds in the sky that would come down and wipe them out if they got too close, and then they would go and like dive into like a lake and stuff like that. There's a lot of really fascinating things with winged creatures. Do you think that that's like I'm gonna go like Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens here, where it's like, do you think that that's like a misinterpretation of seeing a craft? And you know, some people think that like ancient folks didn't understand what an airplane was, so they naturally go to, it's a stingray, it's a dragon, it's a phoenix, it's a thunder, whatever their vocabulary of the time allows for. Do you have a stance one way or another? Do you think these are real things flying, or is it just a misinterpretation?
Well, I mean, it can be both. I am pretty sure that, I mean, we all know, if you look back at UFO sightings and monster sightings from 100, 200 years ago and way earlier than so, people saw these things with the perception of reality they had at the time. So, I mean, if you see something you never seen before, you have absolutely no reference points to it, then you try to apply something logical to it. Right. If that's a dragon, or if that's a dinosaur, or a airship, and I mean, I like that idea very, very much. In Sweden, we had several big, I would say, UFO flaps. We had ghost airplanes of the 30s, between 36 and 37. There were thousands of observations of ghost. They call them ghost airplanes. Many of those, you could probably say they saw stars or meteorites and things like that. But there were thousands of them, and everyone saw airplanes. And then in the 40s, 46, you had the famous ghost rockets. Rockets. I mean, we're talking.
I'm taking notes as you're telling me. I'm writing these all down. I'm like, ghost rockets, 1946. Definitely looking that up.
The ghost rockets is an amazing case. I must admit, I'm not
there so... There you go. Tomas has got it on the screen right now.
Yeah, that's actually a meteorite on the photo. But they kind of look like that. You heard it here
first. We just Fred, did you just debunk this picture right now? For
yeah, I did. But that is a meteorite.
Good. Hey,
I'm sorry. I
don't. Is this the Wikipedia page or something here? Good job, Fred. No, we don't want to spread a bunch of lies and misinformation. So take it.
I'm always bragging that I'm not the debunking type, because I like stories. Yeah. I like great stories. Mm-hmm. But that one I can confirm is a meteorite. The ghost rockets is actually incredibly fascinating, but it's also a huge subject. It's gigantic. During the summer of 46, there were a couple of, I would say it was 1,000 official reports. Wow. Quite, good serious reports of cigar-shaped, rocket-shaped, torpedo-shaped objects flying through the Swedish air. And in at least 100 of those cases, they crashed into lakes, as you can see here on the screen. So, and these crashes into lakes they're an enigma, because they never found anything. Right. But they had a lot of convincing good witnesses to these crashes who really saw, often, witnesses from all sides of the lake, even militaries. They could see this object crash into the lake, and they never been able to find anything from it. Yeah. yeah, you could say, oh, it's the Russians who did some experiments, or Germans, or whatever, but then you must have, why haven't we found not a
No
single
debris or
piece
anything.
of this? Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time this happened in Sweden was in 1999 in Backsjön, the Backsjön Lake, where I think it was 7 people from, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 parts of the lake, who saw a very, very clear object, much like these objects, crashing into the lake. It might have, I might be mixing it up here, it might even have made a turn.
Yeah.
But we had one in the 80s also, which is quite similar. And the one in 99, the military went there. They didn't. They said they were examining how to build a bridge, but they were actually searching the whole lake for
Right.
it, which they spent like 3 weeks doing.
Wow.
Found nothing. Very, very convincing case.
That's
in
huge.
general.
Yeah, because
And the one
that's
in-
taxpayer dollars, right? I mean, that's huge when the government actually responds to this stuff and because there's a lot of documentation, and then for a researcher and investigator like you, there's data to collect and to comb through because usually official type of investigations, people are like clocking in, clocking out. Here's what we did for the whole day, the searches. So that's huge, because it's not just like you're not beholden to only single source information. This one guy said he saw something, eyewitness testimony, which we all know can be faulty over time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is with the 99 case is that the all the documents connected to it is not available to the public.
Really? It's classified?
It's classified, which is interesting. Yeah. Though the ghost rockets, they've been able to trace a lot of papers and documentation from the investigations in the 40s, which makes it even more reliable, I would say. Something happened. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So, yeah, I would say the ghost rockets it was one of the first real big UFO flap in the world, and it was in Sweden. So, of course, that's nice. Yeah,
that's got to be on a plaque somewhere, right? Like if
what?
I fly into Stockholm, that's there's somewhere in the airport. It's like, we had the first big UFO flap, right?
Yeah. I wish it was so. Yeah, now it's just a bunch of portraits of celebrities or something like that. But this is what I'm saying. I mean, the ghost rockets, the ghost airplanes, they started it all. I mean, this was before Roswell and all those things. I mean, even the American military were involved in the ghost rockets because they also wanted to figure out what the fuck is going on.
You can say it. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
What it reminds me is of American fighter pilots talking about Foo Fighters back in the World War II area, which is, when you mention that's the closest thing I can think of that comes to mind for me. But that was more of like, I thought Foo Fighters are more of like glowing orbs that sort of came down and encircled the B-52 bombers and stuff. But that's really cool, man.
Yeah. I can actually mention regarding ghost rockets that we also had a great sighting during 46 from a fighter pilot that was up in the air and encountered one of these objects.
No way.
And the airplanes at the time were the maximum speed was like 400.
Yeah, they were not jets.
No, and this one was at least 700-800 kilometers per hour, and it flew past, and you could see that it was like gray. It was it didn't have any wings. It was oblong in shape.
Has that Tic Tac cigar, like that's the shape we've all kind of come to know of, right?
Yeah, absolutely, but slimmer. Most reports says it's more like it looks like a missile, rocket, something like that, but still often without wings, so you don't see any, propulsion. Right. You don't see anything like that. It's super fascinating, but it's a huge subject, and there's so many other cases I've been looking into instead of being, we have Claes Swan in Sweden. He's the expert on the ghost rocket, so I leave that to him, basically.
We'll have to get him.
Yeah, and there's... Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many stories of UFOs, and that's what we're trying to capture with this podcast. Is a lot of our audience, they don't know these stories. There's a lot of people know Roswell and all that good stuff, but what's like one story in particular that you're like, this is irrefutable evidence that we are being visited by extraterrestrial life, intellectual life?
You mean in Sweden
In
or
Sweden, yeah. In
internationally?
Sweden in general, yeah.
I
Is
mean,
there one that sticks to you more than over the others, or
if Sweden doesn't have one, then yeah, I would just say as an investigator,
in general, yeah.
yeah, what's the one that like keeps you up at night where you're like, because you come across as like you want to believe, but you've got a good head on your shoulder, so you're staying cautiously skeptimistic, right? Or optimistic. You're staying somewhat skeptical. Let's say. So is there something that kind of, like Dustin said, kind of sticks in the back of your mind? Like, no matter how many times people try to convince me this stuff isn't real, this one story is that one thing. It's just like, I think they should look at this.
Well, it's tricky with basically all Swedish cases. Is that it's about how you want to define reality, of course, because I'm convinced that the phenomenon is not just physical. It can be physical or material, but it could also be something else, which is non-tangible. You can't touch it. You can't, feel it the same way. I mean, all the cases I bring up in my book, or maybe not all, but maybe like 90% of them, I feel is very convincing from the point of view of the witness and the witnesses. I mean, I believe them. Some of them I talked with and feel that they're not lying or they're not dreaming. They saw something, whatever it is. But I would say if I can bring up an international case that still keeps me awake, and every time I return to it, I feel that this is something.
Yeah.
This, and that's I'm sure you heard of it. It's Lonnie Zamora's Socorro,
New Mexico.
landing. Yeah. Which, I heard all kinds of explanations for it. It's some NASA thing or some balloon or whatever. But I don't buy into any of that.
Right.
Actually, I just don't buy into it. He saw something that was extraordinary. That's not really something that belongs to our consensus reality of NASA equipment or a balloon. I know that people talk, they had balloons nearby, but I still think he could have seen the difference between a balloon and an egg-shaped flying saucer.
Well, he also
UFO.
saw three beings exit the craft, walking around humanoid, but he described them as wearing like wetsuits, like flight suits. And I believe he was only about 100 yards. This is from James Fox, I believe in The Phenomenon, the movie. He did a great deep dive into it, but he was only about 100 yards. They were only 100 yards off the road when he got out of his police cruiser. And I believe even when the craft lifted off, there was physical evidence left behind of like, he took pictures of like the little landing gear footprints and like it burned some of the bushes around there. Like he took measurements and kind of, filled out a police report, didn't he?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And Alan Hynek was there a couple of days after.
Right,
and I mean, I would say it's a very, very, very convincing case for something landed there. Absolutely, something took off, and there were some kind of beings in it. This reminds me of a Swedish case, actually, because it has an interesting detail in it, which makes me extra interested in it. This was in '84, if I remember it correctly. And there's a guy. His name was Ante Johansson. He was out driving. He's been visiting some friends, and he's going back home. So this is pretty late at night, and he's like 11 p.m. And he's driving along this winter road, and suddenly he sees this big black object. It's like a big, atomic submarine, huge, floating maybe 10, 15 meters above the ground, maybe lower actually. And this scares him. Now I can't remember. It's in my book, and I can't remember the detail. Anyway, it disappears, and he goes home. He wakes up his wife, and he gets his camera because he wants to take a photo of it. And he goes back to the spot, and the object is, of course, gone. So he drives around, trying to see it, find it, and suddenly it appears again above the road. Quite suddenly, this big black object, matte black, and he's so shocked by it, and he comes driving, so he loses control of the car and ends up in the snow. He gets stuck there, and this thing is like 1-2 meters from him now, and he looks up at it, and he's so scared, and he just wants to get away. He needs to get help and everything.
Changes
So
changes
he opens
pants.
the door. yeah, definitely. So he opens the door, and something grabs him on the arm.
Shit.
And three, I don't know, he describes them as dwarfs.
Okay.
You know, if you read or seen Communion, Whitley Strieber's Communion, you have these dwarfs with cloaks, with hoodies, kind of like them, but this was before Communion. And they start to attack him, and he fights back, and they try to drag him to another UFO that's nearby,
Wow.
also black. Suddenly a truck comes on the road on a distance, and it scares them away, and he gets
Lucky.
loose, and he crawls back to the car. Yeah, very lucky. So, and when he wakes up, there's ambulance there, everything, because he crashed the car, of course. So this could, of course, be a hallucination or a dream or something, from the crash. You never know.
What's
The
interesting
thing is
though,
the same.
I was
yeah.
going to say, you mentioned similar to Communion, but we talked about Communion on one of our shows recently about the abduction phenomenon. But if I remember correctly, Whitley Strieber's story takes place around 1984. So this does align with the time frame
exactly.
you're giving.
Yeah, I never thought about it. I mean, the book came, 87, I think?
It came out a couple years later, but 1984, 85, I live in New York, in the Hudson Valley, where Whitley Strieber and all these New York City people vacation in the Hudson Valley. In 1985, you're talking about major UFO flaps. There was like 5,000 sightings in 1 year in this very densely, in this one area in the mid-'80s. And Communion and Whitley Strieber's events kind of line up with that timeline.
That's very interesting. I somewhere here I have a drawing I made, a very free drawing of the.
Oh, there you go.
of
Can we see that?
the dwarf.
Nice.
Yeah, but anyway, I just want to add one thing
go ahead.
with
Sorry.
this case with Ante. Yeah, so the same night when this is happening, another car drives by. This witness sees a man sitting in his car in the snow with a big black object hovering above him. So this witness,
there's a corroborating witness then.
Yeah. So this witness drives. He doesn't go out and help, of course, because he's probably scared. He goes to the nearest telephone booth and calls the police.
Yeah.
So that's why the police and ambulance is there, because this guy said, there's a guy who crashed his car. There's a big black object. This is on paper that he said that in the telephone to the police.
That's crazy.
So yeah, this witness though is a bit mysterious because no one has been able to locate him again. Maybe he doesn't want the attention or anything, but
doesn't that make it even more like tantalizing though? Because if the guy doesn't go, like that was my knock on Whitley Strieber. I'm not anti Whitley Strieber, but I mean, it's just you kind of water down the story when you go to turn a profit. And look, we're doing a podcast where you're writing stories. We produce films and television shows. I'm not opposed to people making $1. That's not. I'm a capitalist through and through, I guess. But my point is that it kind of muddies the water. Definitely, if you use your personal stories, and for that story to happen to a science fiction writer is unfortunate coincidence, I suppose. But
yeah,
with this gentleman, he was just an average Swedish citizen. I mean, I don't know how much we know about him. If he's kind of
Yeah, I mean, the witness we don't know, but the guy who experienced it, he was a completely ordinary guy. He died a couple of years ago. He never made a dime from this story. he never really he said himself that he didn't want to become some kind of guru.
Right.
He hated when people contacted him to, because he was, the thing is, after this incident he was in constant contact with some other realm, some other beings.
Whoa.
So they came to him for like 20 years.
Wow.
He became a typical contactee, but he never
They say
capitalized
it's like
on it.
generational, that it's almost hereditary, right? Some people claim that my parents were abducted and contacted, and I'm also. Same thing with mediumship, when more in the paranormal, but.
Oh yeah. I'm not aware of any specific, UFO related cases like you mentioned, but I know that I work with a lot of psychic mediums, and they often have, parents who have powers, or grandparents who have some kind of powers. With Ante, I feel that his stories after this is wild, to say the least. But just this first incident and the other witness makes it. It makes me, to me at least, quite convincing. So obviously something happened on that winter road,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
But he's dead. He's gone. No one knows.
On to the next
what the heck
one.
happened there.
On to the next one.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I can relate to that story, because I was in a car wreck one time, and I had a paranormal experience with a woman on the side of the road in the middle of this. The side of this road, it's the middle of nowhere. There's no lights, no other vehicles, and this woman was just standing there with an umbrella, and we had this moment together. And she invited me under an umbrella, asked if I was the only one in the wreck, and I said it was okay. She asked me how old I was. I told her I was 22 at the time. She said, and her eyes started welling up, and she started crying. She said, my 22-year-old son died last November in a car accident. And I get chills every time I tell the story. And we embrace each other, and I start crying. We have this moment, and it gets interrupted by another vehicle who's asking the same question, seeing if I'm okay. And next thing you know, she's gone. That other vehicle offered me his Spider-Man umbrella, and I was like, I'm okay. I just want to wait till the police get here. Think about it till years later. She was just there out of nowhere, and then she was gone. I imagine this because it was because the adrenaline of the wreck, or it was what I believe it is that my grandfather protects me on the road, and there's this bubble that he came in and just protected the car, and she entered because she was kind of exotic looking, like her cadence in her voice, her clothing. She just had a different look, and when I thought about it, it was a very dated look. So I think that maybe she died in a car wreck on that road one day, and she's still searching for her son. Maybe it's one of those unsolved mystery things, but it was a moment that I truly believe I experienced. So
yeah,
I can relate.
I get goosebumps here.
Yeah.
The hair on my arm stand up.
Have you had
Yep.
something similar to you, Fred? I mean, because a lot of people, I have stories of, I wouldn't say that I have any medium contact. I haven't seen any UFOs in the sky. I haven't met any ghosts. I'd love to investigate. And in fact, we're trying to do some film projects around that, just out of my sheer narcissism of like, I want to see and feel what all these other people are talking about. My only close call is with like dead relatives. When people passed away, I did feel like I was spoken to. My mother passed away, and I remember her contacting me within 48 hours of her passing. Very real experience. The hair on my arm stands up every time I feel that story. But so was there something like that happened to you that kind of led you in, whether it was a sighting or something close, someone close to you that kind of was your gateway drug into this whole thing, or what?
Most things that happened to me is during, the last 15, 20 years. I don't remember anything really from my childhood. But here's the thing. I love UFOs and aliens, but I never seen anything like that. Of course, I've seen weird things in the sky, but, it could be stars or whatever, or satellites or something. But I've seen ghosts, whatever ghost is. I have. And I've seen...
On an investigation, or like... like voluntarily, like you went to go find them, or they came to you somewhere?
Well, I was a segment producer for another paranormal show years ago, more traditional. Families have a haunted home. They want a psychic medium to come there and communicate with the dead and do a house cleaning, so to speak. So I've been to a lot of those kind of houses, and this house was like a small cabin in the woods. And of course, we were talking about ghosts all the time. But this was in the middle of the day, and the family told me that they see some shapes in the forest. There's like a couple of trees in the garden, thin pine trees. Uh, and I've been to a lot of these filmings, this kind of shoots. So I've heard a lot. So I'm standing there talking with the mother and daughter. It's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and suddenly I see a super clear black shape, with head, shoulders, torso, maybe legs. Maybe I'm just adding that now afterwards, and it's kind of peeks out from behind one of those thin trees, kind of looks at us like this, and then goes back. And it was solid black.
Wow.
And I've never seen it wasn't scary. It was more like, finally I see what other people
You're like,
see.
woo!
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's the clearest sighting I've had. Many years ago, I was out walking and I had this leather bag hanging on my shoulder, and this was in the morning, and suddenly I felt a horrifying cold come over. It's like I'm starting to shake, basically. And 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 then the bag gets, it's hard to describe, but the bag gets ripped apart by something. And I'm alone there on the road, and the bag is ripped apart from the, what do you say,
The strap.
Yeah, the strap, exactly. And I still have this bag in the basement because I never want to throw it away, because it's impossible. I mean, it's a thick leather
Yeah.
bag. It's absolutely impossible. And it wasn't stuck in anything. It wasn't. No one was near me, but it was pulled apart. And that's also one experience where I felt like, what the
Yeah.
what is this? What is this? That was scary. That was scary, though.
Fred,
I gotta say.
what this brings up, and because you kind of touched on this earlier, and I was going to ask the question earlier, but what I find fascinating and what I'm interested in hearing these stories from you is, do you think that your being non-American, so America is very puritanical, right? We're a very Christian, like conservative Christian country at our roots, and despite current more progressive movements, America is steeped in white conservative Christianity, and that's who are a lot of our government officials and stuff, and that's like what informs our culture when it comes to paranormal. Like, we always assign demonic type of stuff to that, and I think we see a lot of angels and demons all the time in our culture. Where I'm going with this question is, growing up, how is Sweden, with having like a different folkloric and a different sort of not religion, but like ethnography, right? Having a different background, and you guys being possibly a little more open-minded than, say, typical Americans, like growing up with sort of, I know in Norway they have the mountain trolls. I don't know if anything specifically to Sweden is coming to my brain right now, but in Ireland they have the fae and the fairies that come out of the mountains at night. Like, I'm sure Sweden has to have these stuff, but is it more accepted? And because it's more steeped in your guys' history and background, do you think that as Swedish citizens that you're more likely to either witness this because it's more in your brain and it's more in your personal history, or are you guys more open to it, so it actually, if it's real, it actually comes to you guys more readily because you guys are more open-minded with this kind of stuff? And I know that's a lot to unpack there, but just
I'd say that Sweden has for a long time been quite secular. I mean, church and state is separated, but of course, I mean, in old times we were very religious. But the old mythologies, the old traditions has always been there in the background. I mean, we still celebrate midsummer here. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movies. It's nothing like that, but it's kind of the same feeling.
It's all this like these pagan traditions, like Halloween, right? Like we're doing things that people don't even realize what predates Christianity, and for the most part came from the UK and the Scandinavian countries. And we're over here in America still celebrating a lot of these holidays and traditions. And most people over here have no idea that it came from your part of the world. And so that's why I'm wondering, since, Odin and his ravens and this different view of the afterlife and all that stuff, how does that inform your guys's sort of, how do you view UFOs, paranormal, and all that stuff?
I'd say because we've been so secular for a number of years, people also tend to say that they're more rational, that they're more, grounded in reality. But if you look beyond that, if you go outside of the cities, you'll find an amazing, rich history of legends and traditions and mythologies and experiences and observation, which is kind of maybe not hidden today, but it's not so well known nowadays because it's so focused, it's so centered on celebrities and Stockholm, the main capital, and stuff like that. So people tend to forget about that. But I would say that a lot of people believe in ghosts. They find a comfort in the idea that they have a ghost, that they have their grandma or grandpa or whoever it is looking over them. I wouldn't like to say that they're religious, like they're Christian.
Right.
They just have a belief in ghosts as a form of protection, basically. When it comes to UFOs and aliens in general, people are more skeptic, but we're working on it. People are quite shy to talk about really weird experiences. It takes time for them to come out and talk about it. And that's why UFO Sverige, where I'm active, is trying to encourage people to bring up the weirdness, because everyone has experienced something weird. It's not just ghosts, it's other things.
Right.
I would say that the for example, in Sweden we have Vättar. Vättar is like the little people. It's like gnomes or fairies or something. But Vättar is like they stay on farms basically, or cabins. They take care of the grounds, and you need to be kind to them, or else they will be up. They're kind of a little bit like tricksters. You know, you have to you have to respect them, or they will do some
They'll
naughty.
tie your shoelaces together.
Yeah, actually, kind of that. Yeah. So we have still a lot of stories about that. We had a guy a couple of months ago who claimed to have filmed a Vättar or a gnome. We can call it gnome, which is pretty interesting. There was someone who recommended. Someone on Twitter said, "Hey, this guy who's a forest worker, he filmed something in the forest and he uploaded it to his Twitter, and he hasn't done anything more with it." So I contacted him, said, "Can I get the video? Can I examine it?" And it looks like a small figure with a pointy hat.
What?
walking.
Do you have this video? Can you share it with us? Can we take a peek at it? Or is it part of behind an NDA for some television show somewhere?
No. If you give me some time, I might find it. I will, in that case.
Yeah, man, like get some exclusive content here. I want to see some Swedish trolls, or it sounded like we have where Dustin's located in the middle of the country. They have something called Kentucky goblins, which actually kind of look like little grays, but apparently they live in caves, and they're out on like this in this cave network. And actually, there was a pretty good series that tried to examine that called Hellier, for people that are kind of in this. It's kind of a cult classic following. Cool group of guys and gals.
Yeah. I love them.
But yeah, that's what that came to mind for the American version.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a slightly enlarged version of it also somewhere. But let's take a look at it. This is an alleged gnome or a vette walking by in the background. It can be a bit tricky to see on this video, so you have to look in the background of
All right,
it
Tomas,
when he
no
kinda,
pressure. You got to get enhance, right? He's got to work his
Enhance.
digital enhancement here. Let's see what he can pull together for us, Toe.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm almost ready. Let's see if I can enlarge it. There we go. Okay. All right. Can you see it?
Yeah, hold on. Let me look. I'm on my little cell phone. I'm going to lean in here. Go ahead.
Ja, har det varit lite rånpark-kalas? Oj.
Oh, yeah.
it's it's very difficult to see in this one. It's kind of in the middle of it.
Did you see it?
I wish I could scroll myself here.
Yeah, you gotta have to
I saw it. Yeah, right here.
Stop.
Right there in the middle.
You see, yeah, there
here.
you have it. I know there's the
can
guy
you zoom in,
did
Toe?
Yeah. Let me get
There it is.
Right there.
Oh, good job.
and this is in the middle of nowhere, of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were cutting down trees. He's a forest worker in the way that he takes care of the forest. He doesn't just cut it down for the sake of being evil. So they, taking care of the forest, and he's out there filming every day. And there was someone who mentioned it to him who's walking in the background, and he did a zoom, and you can kind of see what looks like a big pointy hat, and it looks quite small.
Wow.
Walking there. It's not a place where people walk
Right.
in general, and as you can see, this in the middle of the winter also. So of course it could be a little lady or a child or something, or someone said it's a dog, but it's not a dog. I can see that.
Well, what we'll do is we'll have Tomas kind of grab that thing. Maybe we can zoom in, or we'll run it through Photoshop or something, and see if we can enhance it a little bit.
Yeah, I can enhance it in post.
There we go. Oh, dude, great work, Toe.
Oh,
Look at that,
on it.
dude. That's freaking clear. That's not a dog. That is a bipedal. 100%.
Yep.
You can see two legs.
Yeah. Well,
Dude, that's legit.
It's a curious video, I'd say.
It is. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if we're calling the History Channel just yet over like, hey, we've got, but that's amazing, Fred.
Yeah. So I love stuff like this. I love when people talk about their gnome experience in Sweden.
Oh my
and there's
God.
a couple of really good, convincing ones. Quite rational people. Like hunters or forest workers who suddenly, some of them meets these creatures, just a couple of meters away.
Right.
There's one case where a guy is walking to a lake. It's a place where he's been hundreds of times before, and suddenly this little gray man, like 1 meter tall, is comes out on the trail, and looks at him, and he looks at it, and they stand there for a couple of seconds just looking at each other. Both are surprised. That they can be seen. And this little fella runs away into the forest and is never seen again. We have a lot of
this
those.
is so crazy because it's so much better than like the Bigfoot sightings. Because this is what this reminds me of, is like it's some lumberjack, it's someone who's just out there doing their job, and it's a normal day at the office, and then they see Bigfoot or whatever, and it's like it's just never either clear enough, or it's like overly clear where you're like, come on, like we haven't had a good shot of Bigfoot in like decades, and all of a sudden you got the money shot for like, so it feels fake. But that is like just clear enough yet short enough that it's like accidental, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't seem like someone who went out there and was looking for that, was trying to make that happen, if that makes sense.
No. I mean, this guy. I mean, what I understand in my conversations with him is he's not overly interested in the subject. He just was, he was
right.
very curious that what have I filmed,
right.
and thankfully he wasn't, some people find it embarrassing to be associated with these things, even in Sweden.
Sure.
But he felt cool with it, I mean, he really wishes that this is a gnome.
Yeah.
That this is a forest spirit of some kind, because that makes everything. And because we don't know what it is, I'd say it is a gnome. I mean, because it's his experience, is the experience that has been created from this video that counts.
Right.
I think I'm not like I said, I'm not out here to debunk people's stories.
Sure.
I feel that the phenomenon is, I mean, the stories and experiences, no matter what they are, is part of it all.
Right.
What you experience is the most important thing.
Let me just grab that real quick. You've said the phenomenon a couple times now you've spoken of it in a very respectful tone, which I can super appreciate, because we had an opportunity. We went out and we filmed and did a bunch of work with Luis Elizondo. We were out at his house, and obviously, there's a lot of campfire stories flying around and stuff. And we've interviewed and we've worked with a couple other people and stuff, but it seems like the prevailing theory, and I want to get your 2 cents on this, is that whether we're talking about fairies, trolls, witches, goblins, vampires, ghosts, UFOs, aliens, that there's something going on here, and it seems like the prevailing theory now is more in line with kind of like what Jacques Vallée has been talking about, with that it's all one sort of entity being communicated differently depending on regionality and vocabulary of the time and people who were witnessing it, right? So what is your thoughts about the phenomenon? Is it all sort of one sort of amorphous thing that's happening to us, and human beings have just been kind of like, with our limited 3-dimensional space and 5 senses, this is just, we've had these weird interpretations over time of this amorphous thing that kind of defies our understanding and our working vocabulary, whether it's in Swedish or English. We just can't find the right words, so we're all just kind of circling the wagon. What do you think about that?
I personally, I feel the phenomenon is everything. I'm not I can be a bit cheeky towards the nuts and bolts crowd sometimes, but I have totally respect for that point of view, or whatever point of view you have. But personally, I feel it's all coming, or is deeply connected to ourselves, what we see and experience. I usually make the comparison that the phenomenon is a canvas. Like when you do a painting, so it's a canvas, and it's totally blank. It has some structures in it, of course, and depending who's looking at the canvas, if you are tuned into the canvas, you throw color at it, and shapes and experiences and stuff is created on it. That's my abstract explanation, not explanation, abstract description of it.
Right.
I personally feel that Bigfoots and all kinds of cryptids and ghosts and UFOs and aliens are basically the same thing. I mean, Jacques Vallée has, of course, been into it since the 60s.
Right.
The comparison between old observations and encounters with fairies and gnomes, and how
I have his folklore book right behind me here. His book about but I can't remember. I'll read the title in the back, but it's about the folklore, and it's the alien wearing different masks.
Yeah, Passport to Magonia.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. And I'm but then again, I'm also very, very fascinated, for example, with the Socorro case in Lone Zamora, where it leaves physical
there's
traces in the ground. I like that too. But I feel that I feel it's connected. I truly do. There's one Swedish case from 1979. I have to bring it up because I feel it's not talked about enough.
Please.
It's a girl. Yeah, it's a girl. Her name was Lilian, or still is Lilian. And she can't sleep, so she takes a walk. It's winter. She takes a walk like 1 kilometer around a little mountain in the center of the city. And suddenly she sees a classical flying saucer on the ground, and 2 beings, tall, with kind of silky clothing and big ears, and no noses. they show up by the UFO, and she's shocked, of course. And these beings are getting closer to her, and she's frozen by fear. And when they get up close to her, they reach out their hands and they offer her a piece of chocolate. Yeah, and that's, I mean, you have, for example, Joe Simonton and the space pancakes. You have several incidents where aliens or whatever it is offering food or drink to the witnesses.
It's the internet,
and
it's the international like come in peace type of a thing, right? Like even if you met a wild animal or someone who didn't speak your language and you wanted to like, hey, I come in peace, you'd offer them, like in the movies, right? It's like anytime someone finds a child in a bombed out village, or there's an angry, if you're in a scary movie and there's some kind of crazy, you know, King Kong or something, you're offering it some sort of peace offering, right? That's what that says to me.
Yeah, you have such a positive reading of it, because if you look at old fairy sightings, encounters, if you accept the food or the drink, you get kind of abducted into their world.
Shit.
So you can, I mean, you have cases of lost time, you know, in
this is
100 years
so
ago,
they're hanging around playgrounds trying to get candy and get people in their white panel van. Are you trying to tell me right now that's what's going on in Sweden?
Yeah, I mean, and you're not so far from the truth there, because I guess in the beginning of the 80s, specifically, you had this clown panic, the phantom clowns. You had clown, where clowns showed up at playgrounds offering kids candy, but there was never any proof of them being there.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
There was, so it's a recurring theme with beings of all kinds offering foods and drinks.
Wow.
Even Ante, who I remember earlier, he got offered something to drink, which made him travel across the universe and ended up on a different planet, for example.
And this isn't, I mean, you're in Europe, so you guys have absinthe and the whole green fairy and all that stuff out there.
Yes.
So these people aren't just drinking absinthe and out there fist pumping at the discos all night and then telling you these stories, right?
No. Thankfully, Liliane didn't accept the chocolate. She was so scared, so the aliens got tired of her and left.
Fred, I
gotta wonder what have happened.
Would you take the chocolate, Fred?
Of course.
Dustin,
you know,
Dustin, you taking the chocolate?
Depends on how hungry I am.
Tomas,
take the chocolate.
Tomas, you taking?
I want two.
You taking two chocolates?
I want two chocolates.
I gotta say, I'm taking the Swedish chocolate, and I'm saying, all right, boys, let's see where this party's gonna end up tonight. You know what I mean? Like, roll camera, because I haven't seen anything, right, Fred? That's what we said. We started with like, I haven't seen this, but I want to see. I want to believe. I love hearing other people's stories, but I want to have my own experience. And like I said before, like for me, it's just all about like, what the hell is this crazy thing called life all about? If we're not trying to search and kind of blur the edges and kind of live in that that in between, that liminal space, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Very cool, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the closest I got to entering, you know, the Oz factor, the weirdness is, for example, this is very illegal in Sweden, so I hope not many the Swedish law enforcement.
We're huge in Sweden, but I didn't tell you we're huge in Sweden.
Yeah. But I have quite some experience with mushrooms, for example, and the mushroom experience is, I would say, the closest I've ever gotten to enter, you know, a different realm or a different time zone.
It drops it drops the veil. You pierce the veil.
Exactly. And that's been very, very important for me, and I think for many who have done that, to be able to, like you said, look beyond the veil. What's there? You know.
Out of curiosity, was that around 2016 when you said you kind of came into your own skin? I'm serious, because a lot of people do go on these like in Australia they would call them walkabouts, right? Like where you kind of wander out into the desert and then you kind of find yourself and you come back a new man. I'm just wondering if that was part of your sort of transitional state of mind.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely. It was.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling. You're talking to fellow mushroom participants here in the back in the
lovely.
days.
Well, I'm. Yeah. It's meant a lot. So it's. But I don't talk. I'm quite calm nowadays. I'm quite happy with the reality, my own reality at least. But at least once a year, go out to explore something. Last summer we deliberately got lost in a forest we never really explored, which was amazing. We encountered some giant ants. Wasn't scary at all, but they were quite annoying.
Yeah.
You
didn't see any. You didn't see any gnomes, Swedish gnomes, or
no. I did not. I did not, which is like my I really want to see gnomes.
Okay.
This summer I'm thinking about going on a I don't want to use the word hunt.
Yeah.
But I want a gnome sightseeing or something.
Safari.
Like
it's a gnome. You're going on like
safari.
On a mythological safari, which I'm so down.
Yeah.
Are you close?
I found a good spot.
It's how much is a plane ticket to Stockholm, Sweden, so we can join on this gnome quest?
I don't know how much it costs, but you can fly. I live 5 kilometers from the airport, so it's very close.
Oh my god! I would come take mushrooms with you and look for gnomes in the Swedish forest.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say if we want to see the gnomes, maybe we need something a little stronger than mushrooms. Get some like
maybe
DMT or something.
We'll see. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll find a. Where there's a will, there's a way, my friends. Right?
Yeah. You're so welcome here.
Well, let me wrap this up and put a bow on this for you. So, dude, you have just been, obviously we could talk to you for hours, and I have a feeling this won't be the last that we've seen of Fred Andersson, because not only are you could sub in for Dustin. People might not even know Dustin's missing because you guys are doppelgangers. So I feel like we've got our brother here from our Swedish brother in arms here. But you have just so much information, and you're coming at it from so many different angles, from being an author, from being an investigator, from being a journalist, a film producer, all-around storyteller. I just think it's so cool that you're attacking this from so many angles, and that you have such a wide range of UFOs, aliens, folklore, and I'm just so interested and want to keep diving deeper because I'm so fascinated about how our past sort of informs our present and obviously our future. So what is, speaking of the future, what is the future? What is the present and the future for Fred Andersson right now? What are you working on? What can we look forward to in the future? How can we and our show better support you? How can our listeners get more from you? Obviously, we'll link them to your Instagram so they can come and read some of your Medium articles. But what else is what's on the front burners coming down the pipeline for us here?
Yeah, I would say the next big thing for me is that I'm coming out with a new book.
Nice.
Like we mentioned before, called Northern Lights: High Strangeness in Sweden. And it will come out in a European version. It's still in English. And here's the test print.
Oh,
for
look
that.
at that. Get it right in front of the camera. Let me see the cover. There we go.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Exclusive. There we go.
Yeah, so it will be available for a couple of months. I'm just trying to fix some stuff with the cover. Sure. So this one I self-publish. I do. Cool. But I recently signed a contract with Beyond the Fray Publishing in the United States. Yeah. So they will publish a extended version of this, 3 additional chapters. Great. With some very interesting stuff in it. And that will be out this summer. And this, I must admit, this is the first time someone else have released a book of mine. I do everything myself, but this is first time someone else is doing it, and I'm so excited for it. I'm also very nervous because no one will buy it, and I.
But how do I? Is there a wait list or something that we can get on, or will you? If I buy from you, will you somehow? Are you gonna do a book signing, or can we get some sort of autograph or something from you?
I'm planning to. I mean, this version, of course, I will have my own copies of, but I will also get copies from Beyond the Fray. So I'm planning to do some signings and sell myself, of course, but it will be available on Amazon and other
Yeah.
stores.
Well, let us
course.
know if maybe we can do like some giveaways, or we can get some people to
Yep.
you know, reach out and engage, and we'll figure out, do something cool and get a signed copy of Fred's book. I think that would be a great way to help you push your stuff. And I think, I mean, just from this conversation alone, I think people will really be reeled in, because you come across as someone who's very grounded, like you want to believe, but you know, you're not down the rabbit hole so deep that you can't be retrieved. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is trying to stay tethered to this this reality, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Regarding the rabbit hole, I always say that I go close to the rabbit hole. I look down into it, but I rarely go
just
further,
the tip,
because it's I've been down there, and I managed to pull myself up, and I feel better with a slight distance to things, and I feel more. I can I feel more. I don't want to use the word rational, but I want to look at it from a distance and work on it that way. So I mean, Northern Lights is basically a lot of case files where I'm having some, I would say, quite good description of cases, and then my own analysis of them, my own thoughts about them, plus connections to other cases. So it's a lot of weirdness from Sweden in this book.
I love it. Is it? Does it entail some of the? I took a bunch of notes every time you mentioned a date and an event. 1999, the late crashes. We have the 1946 fighter jets. 79, you got the girl walking in the winter. The 80s, phantom clowns, terrifying. Are some of these stories? Some of these stories going to be in the book?
Well, I mentioned the ghost rockets a little bit and the lake crashes, but this book is more focused on the extra weird cases. The girl with the chocolate is there. She have her own chapter,
nice.
Of course, but then you have 20, 30 other cases which are super strange and weird.
Love it.
So yeah.
Super looking forward
to reading it.
Hell yeah. Well, hell yeah.
Thank you.
Fred, thank you so much, man. You have been an absolute breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for representing Sweden and so well, and representing the phenomenon. Like I said, I admire the way you're speaking so respectfully about it. It really is refreshing, because you're not pandering. You're not out here peddling things. Look at me, which is a lot of, there's like UFO celebrities out there, right? And very, very few people are grounded in believing in weird stuff, but like not coming across as crazy, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's a fine line, my friend, and you walk it well, and you're doing a good job, man. I really enjoy this. It's a very pleasant conversation for me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm blushing here. So it's been truly. I admit I was a bit nervous because I haven't talked with you guys before, and I feel totally comfortable with this. This is the most fun conversation I've had in a while, and thank you for inviting me.
You got it, man. Well, thank you so much, Fred. And Fred, lastly, where can people come to engage with you? What are the social channels? Where's the best place to kind of follow you, subscribe, if they want to engage with you? Just like, this whole conversation happened because I personally reached out to you on Instagram. So I know you're on Instagram, and I know you're very responsive on Instagram, but where else can people find more about you and engage with you?
Well, I'm quite active on the infamous Twitter.
Okay.
Of course. Same name there, Homo Satanis. I can be a bit cheeky sometimes, but I'm nice, I promise. So it's a lot of fun conversations there. But I would say that if you go to fredandersson.se, it's my official site. It's a very simple homepage. You have all the links you need there, basically, to my social media. But I would say Instagram, Homo Satanis, and Twitter, Homo Satanis, is the best way to interact with me. and I'm always up for discussions. At least if you're nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
fair.
and if you're listening right now on the podcast, it's Andersson with 2 S's, correct, Fred? Just so people
Exactly.
Fred, you got to figure it out yourself, and Andersson with 2 S's. Well, Fred, thanks so much again, man. I appreciate you, and I look forward to getting you back here. And I think we'll do a deeper dive. I know this was just kind of like a buffet. It was just get to know Fred and kind of pick his brain about a great many things. But I always like to have people back and do deep dives on like more specific topics now that we kind of have more of a relationship. And I know our listeners, as soon as they hear this, they're going to be commenting like, get that dude back on. I want to hear more about these crazy ass Swedish people and gnomes. And I know we're probably going to have a bunch of people wanting to see that video. So if you're listening right now, feel free to follow us. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, the TikTok. We're pushing the talk hard right now. And of course on YouTube, if you want to check out the podcast on YouTube, and you can see the video that Fred shared with us and Tomas's zoom in enhanced photo. Obviously, that's going to be a great place to check it out. So anyway, guys, until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Dustin, it's okay to believe.
You're not alone. See you next
Peace.
time, guys.
Thanks, guys.
It's one small step for man,
Welcome there.
one giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's Rick.
UFOs are real.